okay, two things I want to pull out. Two things I want to pull. A lot of gems. First thing, you know, in your story, you realized, and I hope that those who are listening realize that there are no shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
There were no shortcuts.
No.
Actually, shoot, I said three things. Sacrifice.
Yes.
Sacrifice. You said, man, you say you use the rent money on the low.
Rent money on the low.
To go out to get some intellectual capital.
Yes.
That you could bring back.
Yes.
Realize that, look, you just got to put in the work.
Got to put in the work.
Bottom line. You also fueling that mental input continuously, you know, so that you're keeping your thoughts focused on where you, not what you're going through, but where you're going to. Absolutely. You know. Absolutely. Then, you know, coming back, even when you're working for the agency, you're realizing, one, that ownership is important, especially for us in our space. Right. Especially. No, not a question yet.
Go for it.
You also mentioned, is there an equity play? Is there equity? Listen, why don't people ask that question?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand. And especially when you start to realize, not one thing you got to look at is that you start to realize kind of what your value is and what it looks like in an organization. And surely, you know, I've had people that have come to me and say, hey, well, what about this and that? And if it's not a person that I would want to be in business with, per se, to that level, hey, you got to go figure it out on your own, right? There is no equity play in this space. But what it made me do, man, is really think about, like, the equity play was everything, because I always remember listening back to that stuff back in the day and still listening to all of the information I listened to. You know, I remember J. Paul Getty saying, you know what, man, I take 1% of 100 man's efforts than 100% of my own. So I looked at that and I was like, well, if that makes sense back then, it makes sense right now. If I own the agency and I can put people involved, I realize that there's different skill sets that we all have. I've been blessed with my gifting I can go talk to anybody at any given time. I can network with anybody at any given time. And I can flip that into other opportunities. I realized that there were people that just are great at selling, but they could never go out and talk to an employer. They could never go out and go find new business because that's not their strength. That's not their suit. And so I looked at it and said, well, if I focus strictly on my strength then become more that of a business owner, because I was never the top voluntary benefits salesperson. I was the top team because I was able to get people, motivate, inspire people to go out and partner with me. They understood that I was willing to do the same work that they were willing to do, even if they were better than me. And I was not afraid for them to be better than me, right? I was looking to hire people who were better than me, because to me, as a leader, that's what good leaders do.
That's the mark of leadership.
That's part of leadership, is finding people that are better than me. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room, right? I need to find people that can also make me better in the space that I was looking at. And so that became my deal. And saying, being a business owner, I looked at how many agents I had for this agency. I started thinking, like, well, wow, if I had this, and what they had was that they controlled the groups because they were the ones that went out and got the business. I'm like, well, now I'm going out and getting business, bringing it to their bottom line, which is I'm okay with, because I've learned here, I've gotten in here. But now, why don't I start my own deal and go and deal that? And Rod, let me tell you this, man. When I did that, when I left from Colonial, I think at that point I might have been, you talking about 06. So we're talking, I left 06. So that's what, from here, 16 years ago, which means I would have been 34. So when I left at 34, brother, I was probably making $150,000 a year on Easy Street. I mean, I was cruising, because I had a crew, I had a team. They had a bunch of
at 06.
Yeah, bro. I mean, I'm talking about, man. I mean, brother, from the time I came back, when I left teaching till I came back in 3 years, I was at $100,000. From the time I left teaching, when teaching, I was probably making $32,000 a year. From that to then, I'm making $100,000 a year. And that's not bragging to your viewers. I'm just telling you, shit, I went and did the work, right? I understood. And on top
of
that,
that's important, because people, the majority of people who have never been in this industry, especially if you haven't been in it for an extended period of time, if you just maybe even if you just touched it. Yeah. But for the majority of people, they don't have any clue at all.
Yeah, no clue, man.
They don't know what the income looks like. And the reality is, I'm like, yo, this is the industry where most millionaires are made.
Man, there's nothing to talk about. And I'm talking about, I went from zero, as Drake would say, 0 to 100 real quick. I went 0 to 100 real quick and looked up, and at 30, I'm sitting here saying, so when I make this decision, I got to go home and then tell my ex-wife at the time to go home and say, hey, I'm gonna leave. We got this nice cushy lifestyle. Everything is easy. But look, we driving what we want to drive. We living how we want to drive. You know what? I'm gonna give all that up because I want equity. And you can imagine what that conversation looked like. What? Why would you give this up at me? And even with the money at the 150, had I stayed with them, I'd been making 300, 400,000. I mean, it would not have stopped. Yeah. I just would not have owned anything. And for me, the ownership, now would I have owned my renewals? Yes, I would have owned my renewals. But the group, I was still in a position that if they decided that they didn't want me to work in their accounts any longer, then I had to go create my own. Well, if I was going to create my own, I might as well create my own. That was my thought. And so I created my own. And so I went back down in income to then be able to come back to the place to say, now you own it. To your point about equity, I can tell you in the last 2 years, I've probably had every person you can think of. I had 8 or 9 people come to try to purchase us now. So now I'm in a space where, because I own an asset, that people want to talk to me about buying me and write that check for me to be able to say I can walk out into the sunset. Should I do off the work of 20 some odd years though, man? This is 24 years of grinding like this. You know what I'm saying? To be in a space of. So my thought is that in us having this type of conversation, one, even with you, Rod, I expect for you to get there much faster than I did, because you ain't got to go through, and you can talk with folks that have already done it. Quincy's of the world, the other folks that have already done it, bro, where it should be able to do it faster. And it's the same thing we want to share with the viewership. Mentorship is everything, right? I had great mentors. And now we're looking at saying, how do we become great mentors to help people get it from where they are from 0 to 100 a lot faster. And so having that equity, having the piece that I control now, it's fun to wake up and say, okay, you know what? This is my deal. I own it, I control it, whatever we're going to do. My staff are fantastic. And even though I'm a sole proprietor on the agency, I still don't make decisions without my core team involved, man. I mean, because those decisions I maintain veto power, obviously, but I never get to use it, man, because I'm open. I got smart people around me, man. And so I'm open to hearing what they have, because they'll keep us out of a lot of places where it's just not my strength, and my strength is going to get the deal, man. That's what we do. So that's the difference. So just being encouraging to those folks that are out there listening.
Hey, thank you, man. And let's spend a few minutes as we go to the last half of the interview, okay, to talk about ownership and being a Black man and employee benefits. Let's talk about that for a minute. Woo! Because first off, once again, when I met you and you're a broker and you Black, obviously.
Hey, and bald head,
and bald headed, and plant based, and
plant based. Yes. I'm
like, huh? Where they make you at?
Where they make you at? Where you come from?
And not to say, look, you mentioned mentorship too, but and not to say, I've had white mentors, in this business. I mean, obviously, because the majority of who
all mine have been. I mean, with the exception of the agency that I work with, that I shared with you about, they've been.
And they've been helpful, right? But as we mentioned earlier, it's important, for young brothers to see, you and I, having these kinds of discussions. What does that mean for you? I mean, at the level that you're at now, right? Because you're not just starting. You're not, you're not just kind of working in a one man shop. You built an agency. You're doing big deals. You're doing large groups.
Right.
What does that mean for you and your positioning, and how do you see that being more of an impact, in the future of this industry as a whole?
Well, I think it's always the adage of, if you see it, you can believe it. Unfortunately, I mean, that's just what it is. We don't see us in this space. And so even me taking an interview, I'll take you back, right? And again, looking at where we started, I never wore facial hair. I mean, I never wore facial hair because my mentors told me, hey, if you're going to do this deal, you got to wear facial hair. That's not part of the deal. I always had on a suit. I've been in suits for 20 some odd years. And so for me to do an interview like this now, to be in a white tee and a hat, freedom over everything, and just kind of doing my thing, I want to be able to say to those folks out there to say, you know what, yeah, I don't have to be in a three-piece suit because I'm not trying to impress anybody in that space. And so all of the impression game is over. I've done that. I paid the price to have to do that, to get into the rooms, to even to some degree, Rod, I'm gonna be straight with you, to assimilate with how things had to do in that respective space, because I wanted to play here. And when I was playing here, I could get in and do those things, but here required something else. It required me to have to do so. Somebody could say, well, you might have been shucking and jiving. Well, I always was me, but I had to get into space to get the information because they didn't see anybody that looked like me. So if you can imagine, here it is, my team is all African-American. I walk into the door, and specifically, I normally roll with two other brothers with me. And so it's three brothers walking in. And so just imagine three brothers in suits, we walking in, and they're looking forward to saying, well, who talking to us about his benefits? Oh, it's Great Lakes Benefit Group. And so one of the things I had to even look at with the name, originally my name was Onyx Benefit Resources, right? And I kept Onyx Benefit Resources. And then I was like, you know what? I need to have something that's a little neutral, that nobody knows who I am when I come to the table. If I bid on something, it's basic. And so we flipped to Great Lakes Benefit Group. That was something that I always thought about from the beginning, something that would be neutral, something that if I decided to sell, somebody could assume that name. I mean, I didn't have the insight or foresight at this point to think about it from a nationwide perspective, because Great Lakes Benefit Group kind of limits me into what people think that we're able to do, that we're just in the Great Lakes. That's the news for a different story, right? But, you know, but in my thinking, I was thinking about how people would think about us. And so, and looking at that, it was always, you know, shirt and tie. You never caught me without, because I had to go out and groove and I had to kind of do those things. So now in this space, and you're asking the question of what the impact is now, I think that people now, because we've got younger folks that are getting into the CFO role, CEO role, they've got sleeve tattoos, they got gauges in their ears, they've got something else that now is about me, is about being my authentic me. I'm my authentic me at all times. I'm my authentic me when I'm working with my clients. Now, do I code switch? I'm not gonna let anybody out here think that I don't code switch. Absolutely. If I walk into a meeting and I walk into and the whole room is looking like I'm typically gonna say, what up, though? That's a Detroit slang word for hello. What up, though? So I'm gonna say what up, though, when I'm in the D, whatever the deal is, and my clients that can groove with that, groove that. But if I'm going to a majority operation, well, no, I'm gonna call, hey, Bob, hey, Jim, hey, how's it going? What's the deal? But then at some point, they're gonna get the real me. They're gonna understand. But I know how to mix all those things in. And so when we started ascending and getting to some of those larger deals, it really got down to the point at the larger deals that the employers wanted to know, could we bring the fire the same way that they thought they were getting from these larger houses? And when they realized that we were telling them stuff that they hadn't even come to, what I realized about all folks, Rod, is that when it comes to their money, bro, that's a game changer, right? And so even though they at the golf club with so-and-so, and that's the deal, if I come in and I can show them how not only they're going to save money, but we're going to plan differently for this thing, and it's going to be very strategic in how we go about it. They're looking and saying, shit, I ain't never heard this. All I've always seen is just been a spreadsheet in front of me. That's the only thing that we've done. So now I've been able to change that whole deal and change the perception of that. And I think that now when we think about it from our larger deals, we feel like we deserve to be there, right? And because part of this business, in any business, is just simply about building your confidence to know that you can be there. And what I realized is that when I called on 20-person groups, man, and I called on 100 or 500 or 1,000-person group, the work was the same. Matter of fact, I do more work with the 20-person group because they don't have an HR department. So they calling me for everything. They calling me, and I'm not knocking that. And I love all my clients that fit in that deal. If anybody's listening out there, I love y'all, right? But it's just more intensive in that space versus going to larger groups. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I continue to go up? And the only reason that I wouldn't ask for 1,000-person group is that I didn't feel like I was qualified to go after it. And that was an inside job. It had nothing to do with anybody externally. Although externally they were not accustomed to seeing us, we had to constantly make it like known, like, okay, well, I know you haven't seen us. Let's speak that from the obvious. Let's speak that out right up front. No, you're probably not used to seeing this. You're probably used to seeing us coming out and looking like a sports team coming out. We're going to make some jokes about it because I want people to be comfortable though. I mean, I make you a little uncomfortable to bring you back in such that you lose the focus. Because right now, when I sit down, that's all you're focused in on is that, who are these black dudes coming in here? And how did they get to the table? And who they know? And all that stuff. So let's get that off the table. And now let's try to level that playing field where you and I are talking the same way that you're talking to any of the box houses out there, that you're dealing with us the same way. And you're looking at us now for the value that we bring and not looking at us as, oh, it's coming from this source. And so as I look to attract other people to this industry, I'm passionate about that now. And coming to Atlanta changed my life again, man. So I'm always looking for those moments that change your life and those aha moments, because I was literally 2 weeks prior to that, had looked at a company that talked about that they wanted to buy us, right? And I'm looking at it again, you start thinking about it in our community. What do we talk about all the time, Rob? We talk about getting the bag, bro. I mean, that's the terminology. We even got white folks talking about getting the bag, brother. Everybody talking about getting the bag. And so now I'm looking and saying, well, I'm in a position to quote unquote, get the bag, whatever that bag is. If it's 3 million, 5 million, whatever, it's going to be a larger lump sum than I've ever had, right? And so that becomes to get something that you start thinking about, man, what would I do? You know, it's like the conversation when you win the lottery. What would I do if I had that money? So you start thinking about, and now it's real for me though, because I can actually sell and get this. And I go down here and meet this sister and goes and see you, man, and see these other folks. And she challenges me and says, well, wait a minute, you're going to sell? We don't have enough African-American agencies out there. And now you're going to sell back to a majority agency? Nobody had ever said it to me in that terminology to make me think about it from that standpoint. She was like, hey, if we develop more people, hell, you don't have to sell. You can be the chairman of the board and hire a CEO to come in and run your organization. But that's just different thinking, man. And you got to be around other people that can challenge you on that thought process, because in that 2 to 3 million or whatever my number would have been that I get as a lump sum, I'm going to make that in cash flows regardless, because we keep getting business. We keep getting more business. So we're going to do that. And that's not to entice anybody to come in terms of, again, folks, 24 years, I'm telling you. So if I ain't making some money in 24 years, I shouldn't be in this business. You know, Ryan, you shouldn't even be interviewing me if I ain't making money after 24 years of doing this deal, right? And so I had to think about those things and look at that impact. And I wasn't done, though, Ryan. That's the other thing, is I wasn't done, because I feel like everything that I have done up until this point has led us to these last 3 or 5 years, where now we're getting looks from other people. And then the unfortunate thing with George Floyd comes into play, and that happens. And then I get more people now, because I've been in the space, been traveling the country for years. People know who we are, know where our agency is. Now I start getting people to give us additional opportunities that we didn't have before, because they understand the value. They understand the work that we've already done. We've got a track record in place. And now it's just not about making your DEI spend. It's about bringing me on or bringing our team on, because we're the most qualified to do the work. And man, that is just a huge, I mean, to talk about it being a blessing, man, just to see people respect you for what you do. Now, I still got to chin check a lot of folks, man. I ain't gonna lie, bro. In the industry with carriers and that kind of deal, I still have to stand 10 toes down, as they say in the hood, right? I still have to do that. Yeah. But I've got the respect in the industry now after years of doing it. And the track record speaks for itself. And so that impact to me, brother, is everything. And that's why I'm trying to get as many people, I'm trying to put as many marbles in the jar of people who will come in and take a look at this industry, because I know what it can do if they're willing to put in the work. Absolutely, bro. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I see that, you know what I mean? I see you as the chairman. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Look, speaking about getting to that point, right? Going to the place where, building into the place where, hey, if you wanted to, you know, explore, you know, acquisition, you know, you could do that. Right. But really understanding like what you represent, you know, to the industry and to the space. And a shout out to Ngozi as well. Like, just absolutely, and she gets much love, much love, man. Everything, you know, much love. And the baddest black broker, shout out as well. The name, all day long. Yes. Carlton, Quincy, Adam and the boys. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. At Carlton. Yes, sir.